fun and on what we believe can formulate your learning journey and your coding journey when it comes to building your own portfolio website. I'm Aishwarya. I'm the internal tech lead of DSE, and the tech associates who will be conducting this workshop are Wanching, Giming, Kay, and Manteng. We also have with us the ops team led by Avril, as well as Juan Yu, Joshua, Aiden, and Shaokang. We extend our thanks to the branding and marketing team led by Sanjana, along with associate Sophia. A big thank you to our internal leads, Rihang and Glenda, for supporting us throughout this journey. With that, let us jump right in. WebDev team, the stage is yours.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Wanching, and along with me is Yiming and Kate, another facilitator. I would like to thank you guys for making time to come for this workshop, and I really hope that you get something out of this. So, okay, let's get started. Let's go through the requirements first. Familiarity with syntax and logic of any programming language will be very beneficial, but don't worry if you're not familiar with any of these. You should be able to get more comfortable with it along the way. It will also be very helpful to have a basic understanding of HTML and CSS. Today, we'll be using Code Sandbox, which is basically a browser-based IDE, so that we don't have to waste time downloading React. However, if you plan to use your own IDE like VS Code, feel free to do so, but we highly recommend that you follow us in using Code Sandbox. You can even deploy your portfolio website afterwards by signing up for a free account on Netlify. Yeah, so I'll now go through the different kinds of websites. First will be a no-code website, which basically means that no coding is required at all. So this makes use of third-party websites like Wix. Static websites, as the term suggests, are static and will look exactly the same to everyone who requests it. So these are written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whenever a user requests a page from the server with a URL, the server returns the HTML file that is specified by the URL and any accompanying CSS and/or JavaScript. Lastly, dynamic websites, on the other hand, presents different information to different visitors. So the content that a visitor sees can be determined by several factors, like their preferences, location, time, etc. For example, an e-commerce website is more like often than not dynamic website because they change based on the preferences of customers to suit their needs. Such dynamic websites are built on the fly, so when a user requests a page, the server pulls information from one or multiple databases and constructs a HTML file custom built for the client. So today we'll be learning how to build a dynamic website using React. This is the tech stack that we'll be using today. First off will be JavaScript. What JavaScript basically does is it helps to create dynamic web page content. It allows your website to be interactive and is used to control the behavior of different elements. So for example, if you have a text on your web page, on click, you want it to display another text. That is done using JavaScript. React.js is our main focus. It's basically a JavaScript library to build UI by combining components. It allows us to make a dynamic web page made of different components. Lastly, CSS is just for styling. So, for example, your font, color, and alignments are all done using CSS. Okay, so now I've gone through the basic requirements and tech stack. I think we can get started. So what I will need you guys to do is to go to Code Sandbox. You can just Google Code Sandbox and it should appear. And then you should be seeing this page. So for you guys, for those who have never used Code Sandbox before, you guys will need to create an account. But that should take quite little time. So for me, I already have an account, so I'll just sign in. And you should be brought to our homepage. Yeah, so the homepage should look like this. Yeah, so once you get to this home page, you can just click on
没有我只是like 会的。
sandbox, click React,
Oh,
and then you can rename it however you like to. So I'll just name it my portfolio, and then you can press create. It might take some time to load, but you should see two folders, public SRC, and you should see hello code sandbox over here. So this is the default code that you will start off with. So if you see this page, you should be good to go already. Now, while you guys are loading up this page, I can just continue with the next slide. Okay. So after you reach the default page, right? On the bottom left-hand side of the page, under dependencies, you have to add another package called React Router DOM package. So going back to this, if you see on the bottom left-hand side of the page under dependencies, just type in React Router DOM and click on it. It should immediately be added. So this step is really important in ensuring that your code works fine throughout this whole workshop. Yeah, so this step is really important. You cannot miss this step out. Yeah. So once you have added your dependency inside, you should be good to go already. Yes. Okay. So I will need you guys to go to this link. This is a GitHub repo that we will be using throughout this whole workshop. So this repo contains all the code that we have done up for you. We know that in this short span of time, it will be quite hard to code up a website from scratch. So we have provided you with a sort of template for you to create a website. And after this workshop, you'll be able to customize it however you like it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm done with my part. I'll now pass the time to Manting, but she's unable to be here today. So what she has done is to record a video. So I'll just play this video on behalf of her.
Okay, now let's get into the React components, more specifically, the functional components. Here's an overview of what we have to do to create our portfolio website. We have a home interface and a project overview interface. The project cards will have more detailed explanation of the projects you have decided to showcase on the app. So let's get to formatting React functional components. Here is the basic outline of our code. The first two lines are import statements, and the bulk of the code will be defining functional components. And finally, we have an export statement, which is pretty self-explanatory what it does. So for us new to React, you're probably wondering, what is JSX? So essentially, JSX is converting HTML text into React elements. For instance, header with a backslash and angle brackets defines a header for a document or section. I will not be reading off all the different HTML text, but you can take a screenshot or just quickly read off the screen right now. So how this looks like in our actual code is in the code chunk I previously mentioned. So to explain the syntax and to use the correct terminology in our code, the header tag is a single root element and everything else is contained within it.
Hey, what the fuck?
Great. Now what we have learned.
No, I got some workshop
That's
shit
not
going
wrong.
on Zoom. Hey, alright. You finding what, Adam?
Yeah, so that was Manting going through with us the different React components and the basic syntax of React. Yeah. So okay, I'll give you guys some time to look through this. Which one do you think is wrong? So she mentioned something in the previous slide about the body needing to only have one single root element. So that's a big hint. Which one is wrong? So the correct answer is B, because if you see carefully, this has two elements inside, but you only can have one single root element. So in all the other options, there's only one single root element, and they are all correct. So B will not work. It will give an error. Yeah, so this is something that is very important to note, because it's often a cause of why your code is not working. Okay, so we can officially start off with the code, and I'll pass the time on to Yiming.
Hi, so I'm Imi, and I'll just lead you through the coding process, starting from scratch. Okay, wait a sec.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna learn JavaScript, I guess. No shit.
Why? What the fuck are you even doing? Don't you have other things?
Yes, wait a sec. There's something technical difficulties.
What?
Okay, so I'll basically create a new project and start from scratch, so you all can just follow along. This will be a quite simple demo, so I think it won't be very hard to understand the process of how React work. Along the way, I introduced some concepts that's frequently used in React. So here I'll basically just create a sandbox and click React. As Wanjing has already go through this. So React. All right, so basically in the source file, you have these three files. I'll briefly go through what each file means. So this app file is where your whole app get rendered. And basically you can put your other pages inside this app function to let them get rendered. And this index.js is something that the React used to connect with your web browser, so just don't touch it. And this styles.css is the styling of your whole app. So later, okay, we'll go through this in more detail. So basically, you can play around with the code here, and whatever you change here will be reflected on the screen at the right-hand side. So basically, if I say something like and close it with tab and hit save, it will be reflected. Okay, so for the home page, it's quite straightforward. Let me bring this page down. Yeah, so it will look something like this, and we can ignore the nav bar first because that's something that will be at every page. So we just ignore it first. And then we just try to create a sentence here and also the picture. And to those who have already have experience with HTML, it shouldn't be hard, but I'll just go through the process here. So basically you want to have a paragraph tag in a sense that says something like a self-introduction, for example. So I just fill in some random stuff here and hit enter save. Then I'll also add a picture. So I'll upload it from here. So basically you can upload all your resources, in a sense, your pictures, to this public folder. So I'll upload a new file. Yeah. So this picture is here right now. Then I go back to the app. Then I'll do something like image source is basically whatever I just uploaded. Image. Yeah, note that you can directly access this picture because it's put inside the public folder. And the React app is designed so that you can access the resources inside directly. And then I can do something like adjust this width. Right now the picture is too big, so I adjust the width to around 50%. Right, and hit enter. Okay, so that's about it. It's a home page, and it's basically what it looks like without the navbar. And it looks pretty simple because we haven't add styling yet. But here, I'll mainly focus on the concept of how the React work. And I mean, if we put everything in the app file, it would be too messy. So in a sense, we have a home page. So we just create a new folder called page. And then we create a new file called home.js inside. That contain whatever is inside the home page. So we do something like export default home. This is also why it's covered by one chain and maintain. So right. So basically you just move whatever it's presented here. This whole thing, this whole chunk. And put it inside the home page. Sorry. Yeah. And of course, we should just delete the class name first. And bracket it inside this. See what's running. Yeah, function, sorry. Okay, so basically, then we just return a home here. Oh, and of course you have to import it because it's not even referenced. So you have to import home from .pages.home. Yeah, now I think it's able to show. Right. Okay, now to add a bit of styling to put this whole chunk in the center, we can do something like, let's say if we want all the content to be in the center, we add a class called content here. Basically, it align everything in the center and add some padding. And we go back to the home page. Basically, we let the class name. Class name is something like you're referring to a class inside the CSS file so that it will style whatever is wrapped inside this div tag according to the style specified in the class. So here we style it using the content. Yeah, of course, div here. Sorry. Yeah, so it's put in the center. So that's basically how the homepage work, and we're still lacking an app bar now, but don't worry, we'll add it on later. So now I'll introduce one of the important concepts inside React. It's called state. So basically, components often need to change what's on the screen as a result of an interaction. For example, if you click a button and something might pop up, or content might change. So in a sense, whenever you click something, the whole thing have to re-render. So React will re-render the components on the screen. And in a sense, the components need to remember like what is its previous state. A very familiar analogy would be like, for example, a laundry machine. You have different states, it's unused or it's occupied. So you have to switch between different states depending on how whether you put your stuff inside or whether you pay or not. So basically in React, you set your state as so. First, you do constant, and basically the use state function returns two results. The first one is a state, and the second one is a set state. It may be difficult to understand it here, but we'll just see example here. So well, I think I'll just use this example. So basically what we want here is we want to that whenever we hit this text, it will change to another text. So how do we achieve this? First, we refactor the code a bit. So let's say this text is called self intro, and I'll just copy over. And then I have, after you click this message, you wanted to, let's say, link to your GitHub. I mean, give a link to your GitHub. So you're something like contact. Then it will be like my GitHub. Yeah, just a fake link. And then you want the text to switch between these two whenever you click it. So how do we do this? We need a state, in a sense, to remember what text to show. So let's create one. Let's call it state is content. So basically this state is set to true when the contact phrase is shown and set false when the self-intro phrase is shown. So set is content is a function to set the state is content. So basically we use useState here. And according to the slides, you can see whatever is passed in the useState is the initial state of the state. Okay, it sounds a bit, but I think you get what I mean. So we initially set it to false so that the self-intro part can be shown. Okay, so yeah, so basically we also need to wrap this since now it's refactored into a bracket. The reason why we have to like put it inside a bracket is because in a sense this is JavaScript and not HTML, so we have to escape from the HTML and get in the JavaScript. So that's why here is the brackets is to escape from the HTML. All right, so because we're going to interact with the browser by clicking on the text, so we also add a onClick attribute. So what does it do when it's clicked? It will switch the states, right? It will switch the isContact variable in a sense. So let's put a function here. This is a lambda expression. So we set is contact to whatever it's like the reverse of it in a sense. So if is contact is true, then this function will set is contact to be false and vice versa. So that's what the React will do when you hit this text. And also depending on the state is contact. If it's true, then you will show the contact. And if it's not true, if it's false, then you will show yourself intro. So we need to modify this part as well. So depending on whether it's contact or not, it's term expression here. Basically, it's a shorthand for if else. So if it is contact, then you show contact. And if it's not, it will show self-intro. Okay, so that's basically the idea of state and how you would use it. And let's render. Okay, it seems to render successfully. Now let's click the thing. Yeah, so it works. So basically, whenever you hit this text, the onClick will trigger the functions inside. And you'll call the set is contact function to set your state accordingly. And according to your state, because your state changes, so React will re-render the whole page. And according to your new state, according to whether is contact is true or false, then the React will just render either contact or self-intro. So that's how you basically make changes to your website. And so this is the core of the home. And now we try to make the, so yeah, I've covered this part already. Right, so you also want to have the project pages in a sense. So not only the home page, but also the project pages. So because you have multiple pages to show, you'll need something to route like to different pages in a sense. So that's why we have the React router. So make sure I've downloaded the React router DOM. I don't think I don't think I've even downloaded myself. Yeah, add this to your dependency. Yeah. Okay, so basically we want the project page to appear in something like /projects. This is where the project page will live. Now, because this page doesn't even exist, so it will not show anything. So let's first create a project page. Let's call it project overview.js. So this page will show all our projects. And also because we have to route in a sense, so we have to add the React router DOM dependency and use it in our app. So basically, this is just a template code of how to use it. In order to use the whole thing, you have to basically wrap whatever you want to show inside. Okay, I just copied the code here. So you have to wrap everything inside something called a browser router. And inside the browser router, you define your routes. And your first routes, which is basically /, which is the home page, is your home. And whatever is inside /projects is your project page. And in order to, use the project overview page inside your app file, you also have to import it. Project overview. Oh, because I haven't defined the function here yet, so let's just define the function first. Export default function project. Okay, let me come back to this page. Then I try again. Yep. Okay, so yeah, React browser router is not defined because we haven't imported the dependency also, so we have to import the dependency at the same time. So let's import the dependency, browser router, and also routes. sorry, it's called. And from React. Yeah, I think it will work now. So let's go back to the project overview page and let it return some random thing to show, to validate it indeed work. So we just return, let's say, yeah, it works. So basically the router setup inside the app file tells you what are the possible routes and what are the pages to render corresponding to each route. So let's come to the project overview page here. So the basic idea is you want to, okay, so it's project page. You want to have something like this. And of course, we're going to ignore the navbar first. So you have a few projects here, each contained inside a card. And in React, basically it's components nested in components. So you have a project overview page as the biggest component that contain everything. And then you have the project card. So that's basically each of the single projects you see here. And also we have a card component nested inside the project card component is because we want to do some styling. We want the project card to show up like a card, like an actual card, instead of some random stuff. So we nest the card inside the project card. Yeah, so now you can see the whole hierarchy of how the components are nested and placed. So in a sense, let's just first create a project card component to show the idea. So inside, let's create a new folder called component. And inside we create a project card.js that will show your project as a card. And we also create a file called card.js. This one we'll edit it later. So let's just edit the project card component first. So same thing, export default function project card. Okay, so what do you want to have inside your project card? Basically, it's the details of your project, right? So what your project constitute? Let's say your project have a name and have a type. And since one project card can represent many different projects, so it's best to have the name and type being a variable so you can just pass in the corresponding data to render a project card according to what the project is, instead of just creating multiple project card that hard-coded with hard-coded data. So what we want to do is, let's just say you have a name and type variable here that you pass into the project card component, and then you want to do something with name and type. So same thing, you just return and h2, let's say show the name and show the type. So of course, everything should be wrapped inside a single root element. So we just add something to this. Yeah, okay. So inside the project overview, let's say you want to create two projects. Then you would do something like this. You have return. So project. Oh, first I have to import the project card first. Project card. Okay. So project card. So now, because your project card component accepts two arguments in a sense, so you have to pass in the corresponding arguments. And the way to do it is to pass in as something called props, or you can just pass in as in a key and a value. So name will be, let's say, just project 1. And what else do we need to pass in? The type. So the type would be, let's say, just WebDev. Right. Wait. Okay, something is off. What is off here? Oh, right. We need to wrap it inside brackets because it's a JavaScript element. If I don't wrap it, it will just show as it is. So now it should render fine. Right. Okay. So we can also create another project card with a different name and different type, but with the same component. Mobile app. Yeah, so it will show up. It's the same styling, but it's different in terms of the data it contains. So in fact, you don't have to specify the arguments here. You can just do something like you delete this and call it a props. So these props get passed into the project card, and then you can access the individual element inside using props dot name and props dot type. This will give you more flexibility in a sense if there's more things you want to add inside the props. Like one day you want to add something like, like a props dot description. Then you don't have to change. You don't have to change this code. You just have to change whatever is here. Yeah. So this gives you more flexibility. But yeah, let's render this and see whether it works or not. Yeah, it still work. And let's just have some random stuff here. Yeah, it's reflected. So that's the basic idea of how you're going to pass data as props inside React. So this is basically what I just did in the coding panel. So every parent component can pass some information to its child components. And in a sense here, the project overview is a parent component of the project card. So you can pass the data to the project card component. And yeah. So I also covered how you can pass in the entire props as props, or you can pass in like single arguments and specify them as name, type, and so on. So yeah, I hope this will give you a clear view of how you can pass data around in React and also managing states in React. Yeah, if you're not clear about how this works, you can also ask in the chat or in the pigeonhole, and I'll try to answer you later. Yeah, so now I'll pass the time to Kay to continue to demonstrate how props can be passed in and the overview of the data flow inside React and also the styling.
Okay, thank you, Yiming. So I will continue from like where he ends. So the first thing is to actually make the component more reusable. So what he did just now was already okay in a sense that you don't need to hard code every single project inside the project card. But then if you realize over here, if you have like 10 projects, that means you need to actually type one by one, like project card name, project 3, project 4, project 5, project 6, and so on. So we realized that we can actually make use of the for loop that maybe a lot of you are familiar with, but there's a different kind of for looping that JavaScript has. So it's a different syntax all along. So maybe just to visualize, what we're gonna do from now on is actually to create a separate file specifically for the project's data. So in the sense, we will create a new data.js file that consists of projects, and these projects consist of an array. And in this array, it's an array of dictionary where there is ID, name, type, description for each project. And after that, you will pass this entire array to the project overview. And after that, you realize that there is this thing called map. So this mapping is the same as for loop in Python or like Java. So what these things does is actually to for loop every single P over here. So it can be this P, or this P, and map it into a project card. And for the project card itself, like what Amy already mentioned, so this project, the project card will take in the entire project, and it will access the project using the dot. So it can be project.name, project.type, and project.description. And this is actually the same as the P that we already passed along. So the aim for this is actually to pass data from data.js, and then we pass into project overview.js, and then we will map each element in the array into to create a new project card. Yeah, so maybe I'll just demonstrate first. So what we're gonna do for now is actually to create a new file called data.js over here. Data.js. And then this data.js will consist of the projects that you already did. So maybe if you have access to the GitHub page, you can just like copy it first, and we will like you can adjust it accordingly later on. Yeah, so this is the project array that you can have. And then after that, for the project overview, we can take in these projects. And then instead of doing this one by one, we can actually use the mapping function. So over here, it will be projects.map be into a new project card. Project is over here. So for now, I think we can ignore the key first, but basically key means that it's a unique identifier of the project card. Yeah, so oh wait, it was so basically what the code does over here is actually to map the P to each P to a new project card. And let me try to see if it works. Oh, over here we need to actually import React. And also, because over here we haven't really defined the projects in the project overview yet. So if we go back to the app.js over here, we can actually pass in the project's data. So first of all, we import projects from data. And then after that, we will pass in the projects list as the project over here. Will be this. Yeah. So I think yes. Okay, and then, oh yeah, for this one, I think we can also access it using the props that Yiming already talked about, which is using the projects props.project and then name, and then also props.project maybe type. Yep. So over here, the issue just now was actually because when I pass in as props, the project overview over here, the project overview only see this project attribute as the only attribute. So just now when we did like name or type, the project overview doesn't have an attribute called name or type. So the only attribute that the project overview passed to project card is actually this project attribute over here. So the correct way is to do this, or if you want to actually, yeah, or if you want to like maybe destructure the object, you can also do something like maybe project over here. So you don't need the props.project over here. So it will just be like this. Oh, there's no ID over here. Project and project description. Yeah, so these are the two ways to pass in props, which is to actually pass in the entire props or pass in the attribute itself in the project overview. And then actually when you realize over here that this like project card may lack some styling. So what we can do over here is actually to create a separate CSS file. We can just name it project card.css. And basically what the styling does is actually to create a new component. So if you can see over here, we want to see a card component that contains the projects. So what we can do is actually to name this class name as card, for example, and then we will over here, and then we will import some styling from the project card CSS. So it will be import project card.css. Yeah, and then for the project card.css itself, we can define some styling. For example, if you want the background color to be white, and also maybe we have a border radius of 6 pixels. Border radius actually defines the corner. So if it's a sharp corner, then it will be 0 pixel. So 6 pixel means that it's not so sharp, yeah. And then we can also define a box shadow, which is to see a shadow behind the card. So if you actually render over here, you can see that there's already like some kind of card, and then the card has like border, like this border that is not too sharp. And then maybe if you want to add a bit more styling, you can refer to the GitHub code and copy paste some of the styling, and I will go through like one by one what each styling means. So align center actually means that you want the writing inside the project card to be aligned in the center. Padding means that if you remove the padding, actually the project card the writing will start from the start of the project card, from the left of the project card to the right of the project card. But if you actually add some padding, this will give some space in between the text and also the corner of the project card. And margin is actually to give a space between the project card. Width is actually to define the width of the project card itself. And then text align is a bit different from align center. So what text align does is to make the text horizontally aligned to the center, while text align also controls the vertical aligners. So when you do this, the text will be vertically aligned in the center and also horizontally aligned in the center. Yeah, and I think that is some of the styling that we can do, but we can also continue modifying the project card. So as you can see over here, the data actually contain name, type, and description. So what we can do is actually to also have some to name type over here. So project type. Yeah. So this one is, so the first part is actually the name and then the description and also the type. Or maybe if it's clearer, we can also move the type up over here. Yeah. And then the next thing that you want to do is that you realize that this entire project is actually aligned to the left, but what we want to achieve is actually this project aligned in a horizontal line, and then it is aligned in the center. So what we can do to modify the CSS of that is actually to define a div over here and create a class name, for example, projects. So this class name over here will actually will actually control the styling of all the projects over here. So it is a container that will control the styling of all the project cards. So to create the styling, we can also create a new separate CSS styling. So I can call it project overview.css. And then I can make it flexible. So you notice that when I do .flex and I import, oh sorry. When I do .flex, it means that all the display of the card will be contained in one line, and it will adjust according to the like window width. So in this case, the width will be changing constantly. So this is what makes the page responsive as well, which is to make use of this display flex. And we can also justify the content to start in the center. Yeah. And the next part is for me to cover how to pass in props from child component to the parent component. So we already cover how we will pass in attributes from the parent to the child component, but what if I want to pass in properties from child to parent? So one example that I will show is to see in this case. So if you can see over here, if I click the view button, we can see that the page will actually show that you are currently viewing project 1. And if you press the view button for project 2, you can actually see that the page is showing that you are currently viewing project 2. So how does the parent know that which card is currently being clicked? So that means there needs to be some information that the child component need to pass to the parent component. So to actually demonstrate that, maybe we can make use of the use state that Yiming already covered. So first of all, when you enter the page, you want the currently viewing project to be nothing. So we can define the click state and click state. And then the initial state of this click state will be null, because when you enter the page, you want the state to shows nothing. So if I demonstrate again, actually if I enter the page, it doesn't show anything. So that's why the use state that we are using is actually null. And then after that, we can also over here we can create a new div. And then what we can do over here is to, so what I'm doing right now is actually to check if there is a click state. So if there is a click state or click state is not null, that means you want to render this entire thing. So in this function, we will in this particular function, we will actually render you are currently viewing projects and the click state. So in this case, when you enter the page, it will not render anything because we initialize the click state to be null. But if we initialize the click state to be, for example, high, you can see that it changed to you are currently viewing project high. But then how do we actually know which project card is actually being clicked right now? So what we can do is actually to define a function over here called click state handler parent. And then it will take in a project ID. And then it will set the click state to be that particular project ID. And then at the same time, we will also pass in this function into the child component. So we can do click state handler child to be the same as click state handler parent. And then in the project card, what you can do is to actually have a button. So if you can see over here, there's a button called view that will trigger the change in the project ID. So we can just create a new button over here. And the button is called view. So what this button does is that when it is on click, then it will actually trigger the function that the parent already passed to the child component. So you can also pass in the attribute of click state handler child over here and pass in the project ID. Yeah. After that, you can go back to project overview page and then change the initialized state as null again. So if you click over here, it should show that you are, depending on which project card you are currently clicking, the parent will receive different information. So when you click project 1 card, right now you are viewing project 1. And then if you click project 2, it will change according to the project card that you are currently viewing. So in a sense, what we are doing here is actually to pass in a function from parent to child component and the child component will adjust the function according to the project ID being clicked. Yeah. And then maybe I will stop here a bit and I will like address any question that you may have. Module not found error, couldn't find. So for this one, I think for this question, yes, I think the issue is with the relative importing. So maybe I can. So what we are doing right now is actually to create a new separate CSS file over here. And this file is in the same folder as the component. So in this case, the project overview page is in the same folder as the CSS file. So I think that's how you make the importing easier also. If you want to import styles, it's possible. But what you can do is to actually import I think it's this. This one is to go back to previous folder and actually to import CSS style like this. Yeah. And then we'll move on to the last part, which is to create a nav bar. So I think for this one, it will be pretty straightforward. So I think you can refer to the GitHub source code, and I wouldn't like spend too much time on it. But what you can do is to actually create a new file called navbar.js, and maybe just to visualize a bit how the navbar will look like. So the first part, there will be a logo container that contains the image and also the GDSC React Workshop writing itself. And then the next part, there will also be a nav container, which contains the link to home and the link to projects. So what we are gonna do over here is actually to create a function called navbar, where you return this thing from header. Maybe I'll just be some of the code that you can see on the GitHub, just to make it a bit faster. So what we are doing over here is actually to create a div container called logo. And then we have an image for the logo that you are currently seeing, which is the GDSC logo, and also the GDSC React Workshop for the title over here. And then after that, there's also a nav container over here. And then this container will contain the link to home and the link to projects. So you define the link over here. So maybe if you don't really remember what each HTML tag does, you can also refer to this page on the slide where, or like you can also scan the QR code over here, where actually basically the nav container actually contained a set of navigation links, and the LI itself is a list of items. And then over here, we also make use a link to link one page to the other. So for the link itself, we'll be making use of React Router DOM to import the link function. So when you actually add the navbar to this entire thing, what we can do is to return a nav. And we also need to import nav bar. From components, and then nav bar. In the issue in element. So, oh yeah. So just now I already defined the navbar, but then I haven't exported the navbar. So what we can do is actually to just export default navbar over here. Yeah. So as you can see over here, it's a very basic navbar, and we haven't done any styling at all. But then let's see if the link actually works. So if you press home, it should direct you to home. If you press projects, it should also direct you to projects. And the reason why there is no image over here is because I haven't imported any logo. But okay, let me just import the logo quickly. So we can import it to public over here. Yeah, so I just imported the logo PNG. So if I re-render the page, okay, then I should also import the logo to the let me just yeah. So actually, like I think there was an issue with the sandbox just now because sometimes you need to like reload the page to actually see the changes you make. Yeah, and after that, we can just do some basic styling to your navbar because right now you see that this thing like doesn't really look like a navbar. So what we can do is to create a new separate file for navbar.css also. And maybe just to cover a bit like concept of styling, there are two ways on how you can do some styling. So the first one is actually to use inline CSS, and another one is to use the external CSS, which is what we have been doing right now, so far right now. So the external CSS is to create a new separate file for CSS, but then for inline styling is to define a style within your HTML tag. So for React styling, it will look something like this. And for the external CSS, you can do it by creating a new separate file of CSS file. And maybe I can just copy some of the styling that is already defined in the GitHub source code over here. And then don't forget to import navbar.css. Okay. Okay, I think the reason why it's not reflecting is because we haven't defined a class name yet for the header. So what we can do is to define class name header. And there's also one more class called header. There's also a class called header.ul. So basically what you want to do over here is actually to remove the bullet points over here, because this UL tag actually causes the bullet points. So what we want to do is actually to make the list style to be none, which is to remove the bullet points. And we can also display flex, which is to make the thing flexible. And we can also define some margin, in this case to be 1 pixel, or maybe 5 pixel. Yeah. And for the link itself, we can also do the same thing. So the link over here refers to home and the project. So we want to have some space in between the link. So what we can do is actually to create a margin, for example, 5 pixel, to separate the home and the project. So when you click, if you want to test the function again, we can see that if you click to project, then it will bring you to the project page, and when you click to home, it will also bring you to the home page. And maybe just to create like more understanding of the styling, so you can basically import styling from your own project styling, or you can also import from style.css. So when you import from style.cs, oh, sorry.
I think it's within its styles.
Oh, okay, sorry. Wait. Okay, sorry. When you import style CSS, it basically takes in the styling that you define in your styles.css over here. So if you can see over here, I already defined some class name called content, which has the font family of Open Sans. So this font family, actually I just get it from like open source like library, like from Google Font over here. And after that, you can just import the styling. And then you can also define the class name here to be content. So what it does is actually to take in the styling that you define within the styles.css. So actually there are two ways to do the styling, which is to create a global CSS that every component will take, or you can also define a separate CSS file for your own component, which is the navbar CSS over here. Yeah, I think that's all that we have for now. We exceeded for a bit, but we're happy to take any question if you have any. Yeah. Is Yiming and Wanqing, do you have anything to add on?
Not really. I think we can open to questions from the audience. You can, like, if you have any question, can just unmute and ask, or just type in the group chat. I mean, not, I mean the Zoom chat, or you can also post in Pigeonhole if you.
I think
Yeah.
for the like maybe for the styling itself, for me to add on is like styling is not something that we know in depth, like in the sense that there are so many different kind of styling that you may wanna like explore yourself, but you can always refer to like the documentation, yeah, available. Yeah.
So someone asked, what's the difference between the React routing and the link? They are actually the same, like they are the functions of the React router DOM package. So you have the routes, and then you can define hyperlinks using the link to tag. Yeah, that's how you use them together. If you're interested, you can also check the official doc of React Router DOM. Is there any last questions?
Right, looks like there are no further questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for